to our 5-point virtual conference, which we're calling the Academic Examination of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and His Teachings. Our principal organizers, the Reverend Demet Jenkins and Fitra Muhammad, have worked very hard to put together a multifaceted program for you all this month. The program will begin with the examination of the biography of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a man who was born in the late 19th century into the Jim Crow South, and a man with limited formal education, but nevertheless one who through perseverance and insight would create the Nation of Islam and build it into the formidable institution that it remains today. Now, during the course of the conference, there will be a number of subjects that are examined: economics, education, government, law, ethics, and black nationalism. And you will learn about and discuss the way in which the Nation of Islam engaged with those issues during the course of its history and the implications of its teachings for us today. At the International African American Museum, we seek to tell the stories of African American life that are unknown and underappreciated. You will learn a number of those such stories during the course of this symposium. So, I hope that you find the conference enlightening and enjoyable, and all should feel welcome. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. We are excited that you are attending this wonderful conference. My name is Reverend Demet Jenkins, and I'm the Director of Education and Engagement for Faith-Based Communities here at the International African American Museum in Charleston, South Carolina. We are just so excited that we have partnered with Study Al-Islam to put on this wonderful conference of the academic examination of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for being here. If you would like to know more about the museum, please go to our website, www.iaamuseum.org. Thank you again, and we look forward to you being here.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. With Allah's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Assalamu alaikum. God's peace be upon you. My name is Fitra Muhammad, executive producer of Study Al-Islam. I want to thank the International African American Museum for partnering with Study Al-Islam to present a historical first-hand account of the leadership and legacy of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his wife, Sister Clara Muhammad. May they both be in paradise. I also want to extend a special thanks to our listening audience for joining today. From the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came the pioneers, many who sacrificed to build the Nation of Islam, like Brother Malcolm X, Imam Warithuddin Muhammad, and Muhammad Ali. May they too be in paradise. And Minister Louis Farrakhan. Then came the second, third, fourth, and fifth generation of believing Muslims. Many are speakers on this panel. Our panelists will substantiate the moral responsibility that historians, professors, philosophers, and authors have to include the names of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his wife, Sister Clara Muhammad, with the names of other trailblazers in the freedom movement. In the words of Representative John Lewis, we have a mission and a moral mandate to be on the right side of history. Thank you, your sister and friend, Fitra Muhammad.
With the name of God, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Good evening. Good evening. I send greetings of peace be upon. Assalamu alaikum. I am Imam Joel Sahir, resident Imam of Masjid al-Mu'minun in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My task is to welcome you to tonight's academic examination of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings, sponsored by the International African American Museum and Study Al-Islam. This is the fourth week of this examination with tonight's topic, Does the End Result Outweigh the Means? Tonight, we will learn from our distinguished panelists how the impact of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, may Allah be pleased with him, has transformed the African American community. Speaking as a first-generation Muslim who came into this community in the 1990s, I, like so many others, came into a community that was given its foundation and built by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I was someone who was making prayers to God for some relief in the void I had in my life. And when that prayer was answered, I was led to the community the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the leader of. It was through his work, leadership, and vision that we are able to be here in 2020, still together, further down the path he envisioned for the blighted African American of the 1930s. Due to his vision and his dedication, he was able to put something into motion that we can see still is growing. There is a saying from Muhammad the Prophet, the prayers and the peace be upon him, whoever plants a tree, reward will be recorded for him so as long as it produces fruit. I want to be the first to thank God for allowing what started 90 years ago to continue to bear fruit. The goal of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not just to see something during his lifetime. His work and vision was to set in motion the beginning of a resurrection that would stand the test of time in the service to Allah. Our community expresses gratitude for the amazing leadership, hard work, and vision the Honorable Elijah Muhammad displayed. We ask God to continue to protect and guide us in our journey. Now let us pray. Say, indeed, my prayer, my rites of sacrifice, my living and my dying are for Allah, the Lord of the worlds. O Allah, we seek your counsel by your knowledge, and by your power we seek strength. We ask you from your immense favor, for indeed you are able while we are not. You know while we do not, and you are the knower of the unseen. Ameen. Please, spread the conference live stream. Visit Study Al-Islam's Facebook page, click videos, and then hit share to your Facebook.
And welcome. I'm Abdel J. Nurridin. I'm an Imam, and I'm also a natropathic doctor by profession. I want to welcome you all here this evening. As always, we're looking to share something with a value with you that you can take and use immediately in your life, and also use as a reference point as you move on into the future. I want to share the panelists with you this evening before we get started. This august body that we have here. First, Imam Khalil Akbar is the resident Imam of Masjid Ash-Shaheed. He joined the Nation of Islam in 1968 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He served as a lieutenant, a captain, and student minister. Moved to Baltimore and served as a lieutenant from 1970 to 1972. Our next panelist, Adilah Karriem Donaldson, at the age of 7, she was introduced to the Nation of Islam, served as captain of the drill team, a graduate from Keene University, has a BA in sociology. Her major works has been in establishing programs for youth in educational and cultural enrichment, youth and adult career training programs and jobs, community events for youth, served on the Northeast Regional Islamic Education Department in New York City for the development of an Islamic language, textbooks for Sister Claire Muhammad School. Our next panelist is the Right Reverend William H. Lamar, the fourth pastor of Metropolitan African DC. He has served alongside the good people of Metropolitan as they've worshiped God, sought to liberate people, and serve in this noble creation that God has given to all of us. He embraces God's diverse and beloved community. He has been nourished by the Nation of Islam's theological creativity, economic resilience, and indefatigable love for Black people for many years. Our last panelist, who you'll be hearing from shortly, is Imam Hatim Hamidullah. He's a resident imam of Masjid Al-Haq in Orlando, Florida. Imam Hatim served as a lettered member of the Nation of Islam under the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Hatim also served in several official capacities, including captain and student minister, contributing to the idea of building a nation, doing for self. So let's get started here. I want to introduce our first presenter to you, who is Imam Hatim Hamidullah, who will be addressing the question, how did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's political doctrine influence his teachings on religion and social reform? Imam Hatim. Is he on mute?
Imam Hatim, go ahead and unmute yourself. Thank you.
Express my appreciation and give greetings to everyone. Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon all of you. Our dear sister Fitra, to you and your Study Al-Islam team, Bernie Powers, Reverend D. Mitt E. Jenkins of the African American, International African American Museum, and your team as well. I know you've been working very hard, as well as Imam Joel Sahir, who gave the wonderful opening prayer and also comments. This is a very, very, I would say, timely set of circumstances that has been presented here, that is being presented here, and I'm indeed honored to present at such a historical occasion. In reading the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's political doctrine, is very, in a sense, I would say, raw and open, clear from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He said that you are not American citizens. He told the Nation of Islam members at that time, you are not American citizens, are members of the white man's world. He said that the only American citizens are white people, and we are originally from Europe, who are originally from Europe. And he asked the question, so why fight a losing battle by trying to be recognized as something that you are not and never will be? He said, I'm not trying to disillusion you, but I'm merely telling you the truth. And that was a statement by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So the opening question was, how did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's political doctrine influence his teachings on religion and social reform? This is a twofold question, so we'll hear I'll give comments on as twofold comments. As was mentioned by Sister Fitra in the opening, and the presenter there, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had a limited formal education. And as we take a look at the image number one, that will be put up here, we are to be reminded, I would like to remind everyone, that was in reality Sister Clara Muhammad the wife of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who urged the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to go and listen to a man by the name of Farad Muhammad, and he did. This man became his first teacher on his Islamic journey as a Muslim. He, Farad Muhammad, stayed with them and taught them, with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his wife Clara, a type of Islam, on and off for 3 years, more or less. This picture is also to remind all of us that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Clara Muhammad were a team always. And she was the one that actually brought him to listen to Farad Muhammad. So in light of that, I wanted to keep the picture up for just a couple of minutes, and then you can take it down. His political doctrine influenced how he taught religion. And our dire condition at that time in America, number one, completely stripped of the knowledge of self or any feather of our history, whether in America or in Africa. Existing in extreme poverty, mostly uneducated, these almost unbearable conditions prompted the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to begin to reach for the strengths of his own skill set based upon his religious life while growing up in the South, and include them or couple them with the teachings that Farad Muhammad taught him. We are to remember that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad grew up in the church in the South. His father was a preacher. Therefore, he grew up in a Bible environment. He grew up in a very religious Bible environment. As a result, he utilized the Bible. He knew his people well. This is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He knew that most Black people, or colored people called at that time, were at least familiar with the stories and language of the Bible. Therefore, he utilized the Bible to draw vivid mental pictures that seemed to parallel the conditions of our people at that time in America. This was part of his natural religious theological strategy. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad described himself as being like Elijah in the Bible. In the book of Kings 17 and 18th chapters, where Elijah would lead the people of Israel out of bondage into freedom. He also used, for example, Jonah in the Bible, and he would refer to the Bible a lot. Jonah and the whale, and the belly of the beast, and that we were like Jonah in the beast's belly, and America was the whale. So we were in the belly of the beast. And this is the kind of language that he would use in major conventions. Hundreds, thousands of people at these conventions, they were drawn to him like magnets. He would also refer to, again, for another example, Moses in the Bible, speaking truth to power, speaking to Pharaoh, let my people go. The concept of being in the United States or in America for 400 years, calling it the hells of North America, in the wilderness of North America for 400 years. He called the people who were called at that time the American Negro, he called the people of America the lost found people, lost in the wilderness, in a land that was not our own, and found by the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. His political doctrine also influenced his method of social reform. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad reminded us at that time that we were a stolen people, a people stolen from our mothers and fathers, stolen from our mother country, Africa, and our ancestors, not knowing them at all. As a result, what would happen, what had been our natural destiny was aborted. I'm going to repeat that. What would have been our natural destiny was aborted by slavery. Be as it was, it must have been the will of God. We were a whole people uprooted and taken away from our families. So, therefore, we were given a myth by way of his teacher, Farad Muhammad, who did a masterful job of penning a reverse psychology for the Nation of Islam and teaching that doctrine or orientation to a forgotten and destitute people. As we take a look at image number 2, we see Muhammad Ali, the champ, holding up a copy of The Message to the Black Man, written by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You can tell that Ali was fired up as he was reading that book and bringing concept out of that book and sharing it with people. And Muhammad Ali was very, very deep into the language and the lifestyle of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings. He was drawn to them like many thousands of other people were. So therefore, to reverse the psychological effect of the white man as an image of God on the cross, as most of you are aware, we still have this image being put up in churches around the country and the world. The black man was given a powerful medicine by Farad Muhammad, given to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, a powerful message. One of the main lessons given to the members of the Nation of Islam to combat that whole psychological image of a white man on the cross, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was told to tell the black man in America that we were the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. Now, if that don't get somebody's attention, I don't know what will. This was a powerful medicine. Our people took that powerful medicine and built a strong and vibrant community believing in this myth. So I want to continue and keep reading because all kinds of things are coming to my mind, being a preacher, being an imam. But young children were saying in the community, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is waking us up. And he did indeed wake us up. And he was indeed waking us up. People like Abdul Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali became giants only after they were recruited and taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. As has been coined, he was the man behind the men. I can personally recall him saying myself, wake up, black man. You can accomplish what you will. You are a sleeping giant. This is a wide awoke land for the wide awoke man. Up, you mighty nation, you can accomplish what you will. So, with limited understanding of the Quran, though he had knowledge of the Quran, and with limited understanding of the Bible, though he had knowledge of the Bible, we witness a type of divine intervention. I believe by Allah's mercy, it took place because Allah's mercy on a people who were uprooted, taken from their own mother country, and brought to a strange land. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad shook up the gene pool of his people like Muhammad Ali shook up the world with his Ali shuffle and his electrifying boxing skills like rope-a-dope and all of those things. You remember that. The political environment of America was also an environment that gave birth to a cultural awakening. And I wanted to put this in as a note, a footnote. The political environment gave birth to a cultural environment directly or indirectly influenced by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. For examples, songs like What's Happening by Marvin Gaye, James Brown saying, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, Curtis Mayfield, This Is My Country, and You People Who Are Darker Than Blue. So the whole environment in America at that time was in a type of cultural and also economic deficits for Black people, but a sense of dignity because there was not a lot of immorality in the Black community at that time. We were just empty vessels. One thing that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, he said, my job is not to, my job is to empty out the vessel, the pollution that had been put into them. And it's the other man's job to put the substance and the knowledge of Islam into those empty vessels. Oh, by the way, there was another song that kind of relates to this. by the Temptations. They had a song out called Runaway Child, Running Wild. You better go back home where you belong. So metaphorically, all of this connects. The environment was poised with, it was inundated with a cultural awakening. People may not have liked the Nation of Islam for the first 35, 40 years, but we were very much respected. As a matter of fact, people grew to respect us. They warmed up to us. And at one point, and in big brother of the Black community. Please understand that at least 30 to 35% of the slaves brought here from Africa were Muslims. Understand too that at the end of slavery, we were not offered Qurans, we were not offered Qurans and Bibles as religious books to choose from. We were only given Bibles that were completely different from the Bibles that the white man was reading in his church. We were part of a masterful experience, experiment in this country within an experiment. I'm going to repeat that. We were part of a masterful experiment within the experiment of America, which resonate throughout the Black community of America today, saturated with injustice and inequality. As we view the image, the third image here, it seemed to be a social chess game being played, necessary positioning based upon the knowledge levels of leaders in order to reach the objectives. We must remember history tells us about those 30 to 35% of all slaves uprooted from Africa were Muslims. There's a very high possibility that some of your ancestors may have been Muslims. And he said we cannot compete in business unless we unite and get some of this good earth so that we can produce our own, for our own people's needs. Powerful medicine, powerful truth from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You may recognize, if you do a little background check and check with ancestry.com, or better still, check with africanancestry.com, and some of your people back in the day may have been saying assalamu alaikum and wa alaikum assalam. Some of this good earth, he said, give us some land that we can call our own, and you will not have to see us every day. Give us some of this good earth that we can call our own. Image number 4 bears a powerful message. I want you to realize that these two men did collaborate. They did talk to one another. We're doing research right now to determine or try to find out some of the conversation between these two men. But as our dear sister, Fitra, she said that they were two bookends, and two big bookends that were collaborating for the justice and of our people in an unjust world. From the bottom up, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was there for social reform and religious teachings. From the top down, Martin Luther King Jr. political appeal, his political appeal to the powers that be, and his religious teachings, these were like two bookends that were fighting for the plight of our people. And what that said is that the leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was timely, necessary, and impactful. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad cut to the chase, pulled no punches. He said that we were in the belly of the beast. However, at the same time, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was not a fool. He was sensitive to the political environment of his time. History must document accurately the sociological footprint that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made in the life of African Americans and the American society at large. Thank you. Peace be upon all of you.
Thank you, Imam Hatim. Mumtaz. It's excellent.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
So you all can kind of see right now what the rest of the evening is going to be like. Let's move on. Got a question for everybody on the panel here. Let me say this to you. We're headed towards 300, and we're live on Facebook, and we also have some watch parties going on. So it's quite a number of people watching us tonight, paying attention to what we're doing. And I know so often we always want to know how many people are on the line. Here's the question. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings of social reform, do for self, and separation was designed to protect and isolate its members from the systematic racist laws that subjugated African Americans and kept them imprisoned mentally and enslaved spiritually. We know that many of these laws still exist today and are producing the same similar outcomes. Question: do you believe that these teachings are relevant in the 21st century, in whole, in part, or not at all? Imam Khalil, Akbar.
Speaker, 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 speaker. Turn your mic on. Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum salam to all of you. First, I want to express my gratitude to Sister Fitra Muhammad, Reverend Demet, and all of those who represent the International African America Museum who made this conference possible. Thank you for inviting me to be a panelist with all of these wonderful presenters. I am honored, having been a member of the Nation of Islam, led by one of the most significant Black leaders of the 20th century. And we heard Imam Hatim go through a lot and to tell us about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad examining what he did. One of the things that, several things attracted me to his leadership, the emphasis he put on uniting and loving yourself, and also the emphasis he put on do something for self. So the emphasis placed on business and being conscious of the need to empower our community is just as relevant today as it were in the time of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. As a people today, we have more wealth collectively than some independent nations, but we are still a dependent people. Our collective income exceeds $1 trillion annually, yet most of it goes out of our community into the hands of others. The point is that we do not benefit from our collective wealth. As quickly as it is earned, it is taken out of our communities into the hands of others who use it to establish their own communities. So we don't benefit from our resources as much as others do, because we do not have the business and financial establishment or generation of wealth. We're viewed by others as a wide open market of consumers. Many newcomers to America have established businesses and in our community, but the income they amass from our people is taken out of the communities into their communities, and in a short time, they build their community with resources they get from us. So the question, can these teachings be relevant to today's world in which we are living, still living, having to deal with the same systemic racist law that still exists and have the same results? In part, these teachings are still relevant and can be effective to eradicate systemic racism. We have to keep the best of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught. Among them is pooling our resources to support our own community, creating jobs, improving the conditions of our people by confronting the blight that is more present in our community than any place else. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad insisted on moral cleanliness among us. He emphasized the need to reach our people to clean them up by confronting the drug and alcohol problem that plague our community. In my opinion, these are virtues that we should always keep. But we must be aware of the shifting paradigms that must be considered today if we are going to be effective in overcoming generations of racist practices that still exist after 400 years. And politically, no matter who is in office, whether or not it is a non-African American, non-Black, or African American or Black person, the outcome will always be the same because the racism has been institutionalized. We must be active political. We must vote and demand that those we are voting for are sincere in helping to empower our community. We must run for public office because we will not get anywhere just being spectators sitting on the sideline.
America. Technology has brought the plight of Black people to the forefront all over the world. We recently hear people saying, Black Lives Matter. Now's the time for us to act. Assalamu alaikum, peace be on you.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you very much, Imam Khalil. And we're talking, this is an academic examination of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we're talking here this evening primarily about what was psychological factors here relevant to this message that he was bringing. So one more time, the question, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings of social reform, do for self, and separation was designed to protect and isolate its members from the systematic racist laws that subjugated African Americans and kept them imprisoned physically, oppressed mentally, and enslaved spiritually. We know that many of these laws still exist today and are producing the same similar outcomes. Do you believe that these teachings are relevant in the 21st century, in whole, in part, or not at all? Sister Adilah, Karriem. Unmute yourself.
Unmute. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'd like to thank Fitra and the doctor for inviting me for the panel. It's an honor to be among this panel here, heavyweights. I really gave real good thought to this particular question. And I came into this nation when I was 7 years old with my parents. So I've had quite a bit of experience during the period of time that's passed. And when I look at this, it is definitely relevant today. Each of us has to decide how this applies to our individual life. Am I still in the same lifestyle I was in when I accepted Islam, then and now? Did the Nation of Islam change my life, improve it, gave me a better insight and a better way of living? Did I share this gift of God with others, with family and friends? Am I real in who I am? Talk the talk and walk the walk was an example of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He wasn't one to say something and not see it through. Right. He was the inspiration to be a better people and see ourselves in a different vision for what we could accomplish in life and in our community. Like I said, however, I definitely cannot say that it's not relevant, because his teachings uplifted an entire nation of people, changed their life, gave us a different vision, showed us how to build and accomplish our dreams to build better families, unity among our people and communities, respect, love, care, share, trust, and honor one another, not only in America, but in the world, with the power of God consciousness. And he made very strong emphasis on the power of God consciousness and the insight that we needed to come to what Allah has set for us in our lifetime. Social reform is to improve the quality of life. It's to change the social and political views. When one looks at the state of this country today, we see many of the same old behaviors that still exist from over 400 years ago, spilling into the 20th century. That of hatred, envy, murder, hostility, and so many atrocities that's too much, and the list is too long to list. The teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are relevant today in many ways to revive and strengthen us from the God-given teachings he gave to him, to build the foundation as a strong people from the 30s to his passing in 1975. The echoing words of the stories of our ancestors told throughout the centuries are calling us to have faith, trust, wisdom, to understand and remember who we are. Many of us have lost that knowledge along the way, being sold away and killed. We asked the question at this time, well, where do we go from here? But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has already given us examples and given us the exercise and given us the opportunity to reach that victory that he had set up for us from the beginning. He gave us the strength. He gave us the feeling that we could do this. He made us look and feel much, much better than we were when people told us that we were nothing and that we were ignorant and that we was this, that, and so many different other adjectives we've been described by. But he set up a whole lifestyle for us that changed our life. And everything that he did and everything that he said, we followed that with trust and truth. We followed that with true conviction. So may Allah continue to bless him.
Thank you. We really appreciate you, Sister Adilah.
Alhamdulillah.
Next is the Right Reverend William Lamar. Now, William Lamar is really outside of the Muslim community. And so his perspective, quite naturally, is going to be very, 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 very enlightening, I would believe. I've got some other questions I'm going to ask him later on, but Reverend Lamar, do you believe that these teachings are relevant in the 21st century in whole, in part, or not at all?
The answer, brother, is sure enough relevant. And I want to thank you all for the opportunity. We are in the presence of our God and our ancestors. We are together. There's great work for us to do. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is sent of God to help us along the way. So Imam Hatim, you mentioned about the meetings between Dr. King and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And there's a book that I'm reading by Jonathan Ryder who has a quote from their exchange. Let me share this with you. In Martin King's one known meeting with Elijah Muhammad, the head of the Black Muslims, their main disagreement was over the degree of white devilry, not its undeniable reality. King asked Muhammad, do you really believe that all white folks are devils? I know a lot of white people have a lot of devil in them. And Mr. Muhammad smiled. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to young Dr. King, you and me both grew up in Georgia. I grew up in Sandersville, you grew up in Atlanta. And we know there are many kinds of snakes. The rattlesnake was poisonous and the king snake was friendly, but they both snakes. And the two of them, Elijah Muhammad and Martin King, began to laugh together. This is relevant because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad leaves us with three things that we have to continue to build upon: theological innovation, economic power, and artistic flourishing. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was born, as was mentioned, Elijah Poole, October 7th, 1897 in Sandersville, Georgia, not far from my home of Macon, Georgia. He had a third grade education. He worked in sawmills and brickyards like my grandfather. He saw lynchings, and he said, as a young man, I saw enough white violence for 26,000 years or 26,000 lifetimes. He left during the first Great Migration, and it was Sister Clara, as has always been the case, our sisters leading us toward where we ought to be, who urged him to attend a speech by Master W.D. Farrar in 1931. And this Baptist lay preacher had a divine encounter which changed how he viewed God. Black people must free ourselves from viewing God as other people impose God upon us. We must be free enough to see God for ourselves. And so like David Walker, who saw God for himself, like Nat Turner, like Harriet Tubman, like Sojourner Truth, Elijah Muhammad had a vision of God who loved Black people, who was a warrior against oppression, and who intended to change America and visit judgment upon America for its wickedness. Now, economically, Elijah Muhammad was like most of the Black people in the South of that age. They believed in owning land. I heard 1,000 times growing up, God ain't making no more dirt. They believed in owning land and producing their own food because they knew they could not trust others to take care of them. So the do for self was not so much something he created, but something that Black people in the South had lived and known for generations. And finally, let me say this, and this is important. There is no hip hop without Elijah Muhammad. The golden era of hip hop, Public Enemy, Brand Nubian, Diggable Planets, Rakim, Big Daddy Kane, Black Sheep, Wu-Tang. It was the teaching of Elijah Muhammad which freed the mind of Clarence 13X. And Clarence 13X founds the 5% nation, or the nations of the gods and the earth. And hip hop rests upon the theological foundation of Elijah Muhammad, this multi-billion-dollar industry. And I was politically awakened by hip hop artists who have been awakened by Elijah Muhammad's teaching. My being awake, I am someone who he awakened, who was arisen from slumber. And I'm thrilled to be in conversation with you.
Well, we are happy to be in company with you tonight. And let me say something before we go to Hatim. You know, Reverend Lamar is probably over one of the biggest churches in the country, certainly in Washington, D.C. And so he's leading a whole lot of people. So if he has that perspective and this perception of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, there are other people that have it too. And he's sharing these type of ideas with his members. Something for you to think about. This is a good time for those of you who are on Facebook, those of you who may be listening by phone, those of you who may be online with us. This is a good time for you to call somebody else and tell them to get online. This is a great time for it. Imam Hatim.
Yes.
Do you believe that these teachings are relevant in the 21st century in whole, in part, or not at all?
Yes, I believe that the social reform teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I believe in those teachings 100%. Do for self, 100%. Separation in part, however, not physically, not physical separation, because our guidelines for our life as Muslims with understanding and wisdom gives us our separation normally and naturally. You know, we say to each his own, and we are not necessarily in need to separate ourselves from other people in that way. However, there's a metaphor here that I think that we can all take a lesson from, and that is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad used to point to the Quran a lot. He pointed to the Quran. You saw in the very beginning of this media, the picture of the Farad Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and his son, Imam Nurridin Muhammad. And I made a statement earlier, staying with the theme of the question, that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that his responsibility was to empty out of the vessels, because the white man had put a lot of things in our mind, and our dire situation was a situation where we had no answers. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he said that his responsibility was to take the pollution out of the vessel that had been put into them. Vessel meaning the lost found Negroes here in North America. A lot of things had been put into us, and that he wanted to take it out, and that the next man will come and put into you the type of education, not so much social reform and not so much, you know, that, but I'm talking about religious guidance, religious orientation. And I think the separation is a metaphor as the prophet, our prophet that we all claim, he separated himself from the people of Mecca to go and get answers. Like Moses went to the mount, Jesus went to the mount. People have to get away, leaders have to get away. So we have to get away sometimes and delve off into the depths of the religious philosophies or orientations that we have. Yes, we have to separate, but we have to come back. We have to separate, but we have to come back and give the good news. That's the short answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sister Adilah,
Yes,
I want
sir.
to ask you a question. There's so much talk about women being abused in Islam. What was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's perspective of women?
Oh, he was very, very adamant about the family structure and the treatment of women. As a matter of fact, when the brother Imam spoke about Sister Clara Muhammad and her role that she played in getting her husband to go to the meeting with Master Farad Muhammad, it reminded me in the Quran of the same thing that happened with Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And his wife Khadijah talked with him about his experience and reassured him. He had the highest respect for women. And he taught his FOI to make sure that was something that took place in our particular communities and our families and everything. And he spoke with the men, the FOI during that time, to talk with them and had them taught in different classes to reverence the women in their life and their children, to look after them. If you look through history, you'll see that some of the atrocities throughout different nations and tribes, that when you took and captured their women, your whole civilization or your whole group of people disappeared soon. And so Allah has truly given us a responsibility as women of keeping our families in a situation where we can thrive and we can support the men in our life and we can help build the civilization. It's dynamic. I had a chance to meet him. He always, he just gives you that all the time. And so that made a big difference in family structure and family life for all of us as women. And for all of our children and all of our men that we married. So yes, sir, brother. He really reverenced the women.
Thank you very much. And I have to testify, I was fortunate enough to marry my wife, Connie, who was already in the Nation of Islam before I got there. This was almost 50 years ago. You know, she was there and she had already been educated and trained and taught how to take care of her husband and her children and me. And I really have been blessed. There's no question. And I'm sure Khalil can testify the same thing of him and Sister Darlene. So many of us, Hatim, all of us, we've been blessed because we got women that were trained and educated on how to take care of their husbands and their children. Reverend Lamar, MT was very, very powerful. Reverend Lamar, this question is for Reverend Lamar. Let me say this to those of you who are online with us. If you have questions, go to the chat box and put your question in the chat box. Or if you guys are online from somewhere or whatever you got questions, Naima says how to go about doing it. Question and answer box. That's the way to go. Not in the chat box is the way for you to go. Reverend Lamar.
Yes, sir.
The leadership of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was perceived by Black preachers as radical. But in hindsight, the results proved favorable for the social reform of a broken people. Do you believe that today that perception has changed? If yes, why? If no, why not?
let me say this. The teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad were not radical, and actually not an innovation in Black religious life, but building upon what came before. Nat Turner, who read scripture through a lens of God as liberator and lover of Black people. Was he radical? No, God called him to free God's people. Nat Turner, when he died, from what I have researched, he had with him a copy of the work of David Walker. So David Walker, Nat Turner, Richard Allen, all of these who are ancestors who built theological systems that were based both on, always when African people create, there is a sense, whether we understand it fully or not, of the survival of African traditional understandings of humanity and who God is. And so Blacks who dealt with Christian scripture built on what we call ATR, African tradition, realities of religion. I would also argue that that survived in the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's theological innovation of the Nation of Islam. So those, and this is where we have to be careful, those who called him radical were those who suffered from what I will call tonight the bourgeoisification of the Black church. Right. That closer they got to middle classness, the closer they got to enjoying the spoils of the empire, they laid aside a religion of liberation for a religion of assimilation and for the protection of the little bit that they had. And so those that call the work of Elijah Muhammad radical, not only have they forgotten from whence we have come, but they have gotten so comfortable in the house of the empire that they think this house exists for them. And I agree with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We still are not citizens, because if we were citizens, we would not have to fight to protect our votes. If we were citizens, we would not be shot down with impunity. So what he is arguing is what has been argued by Black people before: Muslim, humanist, Christian, all faith, no faith. And so those who call him radical are those who have associated themselves with the very power that oppresses us today.
Let me follow up with this. I see we've got questions from those of you online. I'm going to take your questions. We will get to you also. But let me go. I want to kind of follow up on what Reverend Lamar is saying to us, but I want to ask this question of Imam Khalil. If the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was doing such a great job to help African-American people, why did the government seek to stop the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? Get off, come off, Khalil, you on? Yeah.
They saw him as a threat. And even though he was teaching something that was uplifting, they saw him as a threat against the government. And they looked at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his movement as one of sedition. And they infiltrated us. They infiltrated the community, and which made us, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, very careful about what was going on. He really guarded the community, and he understood where he wanted to go. So I believe that they did this in order to stymie or to stop the progress that he was making, because definitely they were trying hard to keep a Black Messiah from arising. And this is reported in some of the information that the FBI has. You know, they talk about Malcolm, but really they were talking about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who was the teacher of Malcolm.
Reverend Lamar, I want you to follow up on this. Is this still going on? Come off of mute.
Oh, yes, definitely. And let me share. So here is the issue. Part of the issue is, and I want to share this information. There's a book called The Myths That America Lives By. The reason that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the reason that Jeremiah Wright, the reason, and the list goes on, any person, but especially Black religious leaders and Black thinkers who challenge these myths will have a problem with the American government, because the American government is about propaganda that keeps the American empire strong. So let's tie a line again between King and Muhammad. Martin King sitting down with Elijah Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad sitting down with him showed mutual respect. So that idea of bookends is very important. But here are those myths. The myth that America is a chosen nation. What Elijah Muhammad said was that Black people were chosen. They couldn't have that. That the myth that America is nature's nation, that God has created America for a certain purpose that no other nation can fulfill. That also is blasphemy. The myth that America is a Christian nation. There is nothing Christian about the founding of America, and the majority of the founders of America were not Christians, but they were Unitarians, or they believed in some philosophical deity, but not in a God who intervened. Let me put it this way. There's a difference between deism and theism. Deists believe that God exists, but does not intervene in the world. Theists believe that God both exists and intervenes. Those who founded America were deists, but they were deists because they had a politics where they did not want God to intervene in the violence that they were enforcing against the bodies of indigenous and Black people. And of these myths, the myth of the millennial nation, that at the end of time, America would be found standing above all other nations. And finally, the myth of the innocent nation. You find it right now in our politics. America takes no responsibility for what America has done in the world. Thus, Malcolm saying when Kennedy was assassinated, chickens coming home to roost. Essentially what he was saying is America has proffered violence around the world, and that violence comes back. Or when you talk about people who talk about radical Islamic terror, are we going to talk about radical Christian terror, which continues to visit? You can't talk about one without the other. Or Martin King, at the time of his close to his death, 67, 68, he calls America the most violent nation in the world. That myth of innocence, when it is pierced, America does what it can to shut up those who are trying to stop the myth.
Y'all let that marinate for a minute. This is the world that we're in today. Still similar to where we were yesterday. Let me take a question here from our audience. And this is for Sister Adilah. This is from Sister Hafiza Majid. And her question is there sufficient data today that suggests a different attitude today regarding how women are looked upon in Al-Islam?
Yes. In different communities that we circulate in, you know, especially going to Juma and different activities that other masalas may give, we find that our interaction with Muslim women from other communities are very influential and changing within our own atmosphere. We, I might say, are some of us, not all of us, who are interacting with the different sisters. We see that we're trying to take on an identity that is not our culture. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad spoke on that as well as his son did as well. In a precaution, that's one of the reasons I believe that he kept us in a place where we can learn and appreciate and love our own selves first. Because he did teach that we are people who have friends in all walks of life, which means that you can go among different people from different societies, whether they're Muslim or not, and maintain who you are and what you represent and interact with people from all walks of life. However, when you see what's happening in our own community sometimes, you recognize that. And by having the teachings from MGT class and GCC class, and even FOI, those of us who have really, really dedicated ourselves to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as well as the teachings and the movement that we've made from that time in our life up into the Quran. It has reinforced who we are and reinforced our lifestyle and the way we look at life, that we can be able to be among any people as long as we don't forget what our teachings were, that the Honorable Elijah told us about how we interact and obey the word of God. That's
don't lose yourself in somebody else's identity.
That's true.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. That's true.
Yeah.
And we have to be very, very aware of that.
Yeah. Khalil, I want you to take this question too. Why has the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the next question, why has the Honorable Elijah Muhammad been taken out of the history books? Even our Black historians do not talk about him.
That's true. And they've done this because, again, I believe it's because of fear, and because they also want to emphasize and put the importance on his students, on those who follow him. For example, Malcolm, who we love and we respect. Muhammad Ali, we love and respect. Also, Minister Louis Farrakhan. All of these people were taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And those who are responsible for recording history, they do a great disservice to our people when they have taken him out of the history book. Yeah. In fact, it is the height of intellectual dishonesty when they know that this man existed. And without him, a lot of these things, as some of our presenters have already stated tonight, a lot of things that he directly or indirectly influenced would not be today.
Same question, Imam Hatim.
Could you rephrase the question?
Yeah, why did they take him? Why is he not in the history books?
Well, it's a very simple answer. I believe that, you know, when you're not in a position where you can control people's thinking and give commands to society either openly or subliminally, then, you know, people are afraid of the what may happen. The reason why they used to follow Malcolm around and is because Malcolm was a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and Malcolm would travel around the world with this language that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was teaching him. It gave him a sense of freedom. So they would send people to follow him, as most of you know on the screen and on the panel, et cetera. And those who are viewing as well, it was a fear factor of not having control of not just the majority of the Blacks in America, but they wanted to control all of the Blacks in America. It was like herd fashion, commandeer kind of situation. In other words, don't let none of these ends get away or get out of our environment where we can't control them. So he became a threat to the sociological life, the psychological evolution that was taking place in the United States of America. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was the core source. He was the root source of that true freedom for the African American Negroes at that time. Their intellects were being freed, having a sense of freedom and having a sense of owning up and living up to be a real man. So just if people would be just honest, you know, we have to remember we were penned as being 3/5 of a human being, and many of us know this. This is documented. 3/5 of a human being means that, you know, these people are not qualified to be human 100%. So what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was doing, he was putting the Black man's mind and the woman in the vein of becoming free, even more free. So I wanted to kind of do a back step and just make mention about the women. at our conventions there in Chicago and many other places, but mainly in Chicago, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would have the brothers to put up a sign: "We must protect our women." This was in bold black font, big font, across the wall at the museum, at the Coliseum where we used to have those meetings. We must protect our women, and that we had a thing going on, and most of you know, it was so much respect that we had to have, and we should have had, and we had for our women. We called them queens, Queen, queen. So I'm saying that particular type of rapport that the black man had for his woman is quite different than what is going on even in the hip hop music. You know, even though hip hop was probably born out of some of that language, the hip hop music now has been inundated with complete disrespect for our women, calling them different names and different things like that. You know what I'm talking about. So I wanted to, you know, kind of step back and get into that. But I do believe that we are to see the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as he was living and as he was leading. We have to not underestimate what God was doing with him in time. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was evolving as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was evolving as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I can remember when he gave one of his last lectures at the Coliseum, I know it was Cobo Hall or there at Lakeshore Drive, etc. He had a Caucasian Muslim. He had a Muslim from, I don't know, I think it was maybe, you know, Turkey or somewhere, but he looked like a white man. And his own perception of white people as a student, because I observed the evolution, his own perception of white people changed because of his maturity, because of what God was doing with him in his later years. And we have to make sure that we make note of this, because we don't want people to leave this venue, this media, thinking that whoever is in association with and I know we are mature enough not to think this, but we have to put it out there. Whoever is in association with anyone who was with or is with the Nation of Islam thinks that all white people are snakes, you know, whether it be a king snake or, you know, a rattlesnake. No. Our vision and our understanding of that particular interaction has changed. It has evolved, like we saw during the latter years of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I want to make mention of that.
Yes, thank you very much. And I want to come back to this because I have to ask that question to Reverend Lamar. But before I go there, there's a couple of comments that some of our guests offline have made for us. And here's one. This is from Zakia Hassan. She said this, relevant to women. She says, as a young girl, I would be so excited when traveling with my family. The brothers would escort us to wherever we wanted to go. And people in the airport would move to the side and make a clear path for us. We felt special. This is Sister Zakia Hassan. She has another. They say they took him out of the history books. This is her comment. They took him out of the history book so they can continue to teach African American while will still feel inferior. They took down Elijah Muhammad's teachings out so that they could keep what they've been teaching, which she feels is something that would cause us to feel inferior. So let me go back here to Reverend Lamar. I want to go back to this, keeping the Honorable Elijah Muhammad out of these history books, and your perspective. What's your thoughts?
Well, I want to expand on what Imam Hatim said. That quote of the exchange between Martin and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I think is important, because what they are naming is a broader system of white supremacy, which they both named clearly. So it has more to do with the systemic, and it has more to do with the systemic rather than individual, although individuals participate. So I appreciate that. So with the history books, let's be very clear. History is political, all right? And by that I mean, those who write history have a reason that they are telling the story a certain way. So the American history with which we grew up in schools in the United States was not history. There were stories told to make us compliant citizens in the American empire. Mm-hmm. So you keep Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, and let's be clear, Martin King is kept out of the textbooks. What you read in the textbooks ain't who he was. What you read is, in the words of Cornel West, a deodorized, defunkified Martin Luther King, right? So the truth of the matter is that you keep out of your history books people who will challenge your political order. And those whom you place in your history book, their story is told such that your political order will be strengthened. And so Elijah Muhammad does not conform to those standards of imperialism. Therefore, he must be silenced. Therefore, we must tell a story. Let me say this and I'll stop. Attorney General Bill Barr, who by no means is righteous. I know nothing about him as an individual, but his politics. He said something that we have heard. He said it about a year ago. Look it up. He said he was asked about history in light of the 1619 Project. And he said, winners write history. What he's telling you is that the winner writes history so that they will continue to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hatim, let me come back to you. You made mention of the fact that today we should be careful that we don't label everybody the same way. And Dr. Lamar, Reverend Lamar, mentioned the fact that you got different types of snakes. What was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's perspective of the white man?
His ideology early on, early in his mission, was that the white man was the devil. And the psychological, or I would say the statement is a statement that he gave to his people to let them know to watch out for this white man. Because, you know, for the most part, the white man, especially during those early days in this country after slavery and thereafter, they were, if they did not endorse white supremacy, or if they didn't practice white supremacy, they certainly were silent as others practiced it, you know. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made that statement, and if you would observe again the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's language as he got older and he got a little into his up in age, etc., then he had changed his methodology, his language, his approach to how he taught Islam. And as you know, as you heard, I mentioned earlier that Farad Muhammad taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad a type of Islam. So what we're doing here is we have separated Islam as a lifestyle from the sociological influences and teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the sociological teachings, social reform, etc. All of these now are being talked about in pockets. You see, if you separate Islam from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's social reform and then his economic plan and all of this, and look at them as separate entities, then there's gray areas that began to get even more bland, non-comprehensive. So I'm saying this to say that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as I mentioned earlier, was a man and a leader in an evolving state. Yeah. He was not cookie cutter Elijah Muhammad. No, no, no. God was working with him every year of his life, just like he works with us every year of our lives. He called himself a Muslim. He's pointed to the Quran and he pointed to the Bible. And he utilized, as I said earlier, the stories in the Bible to fish his people out of Christianity, to call their attention, hey, there's another way. You're tired of being under the white. So quick answer, he called the white man the devil because it was necessary from his standpoint to call the white man a devil. And so we have this responsibility as people who are students of what he called the Quran. And he said, this is the Quran, this is the holy book. And he would put it up on the high shelf and et cetera, et cetera. But he didn't teach a lot of the Quran, even though he knew some of the Quran. And that and the other thing is there's another phase, and we're gonna have to do another one of these, I hope in the very near future, to show the connections that lead to the next leader. And I don't want to, because this one is about, as Fisher said, this one is about the Elijah Muhammad. Yeah. You know, his methods. Yeah, he called them devils because a lot of them were devils. But those that were quiet, that were not devils, at least they say, you know, you conform to the situation from your silence. You know, so yes, that was his statement. The white man is the devil. That's what he said.
You all have got preachers ready to preach tonight. I'm telling you, we're listening to what y'all said. Preachers are ready to preach tonight. But I want to ask Adilah this. And this is a pretty deep question here. This is just Adilah. Did you believe that the black man was God?
I saw him not as the supreme being, but I saw him as a image of God in the and that's really deep and that's really heavy. But when you listen and you go to the classes, like I said, the MGT class, sit among the elders in our community, you learn so many different things, and you learn to be able to see a path that leads to a better understanding of what you're being taught. So did I believe the black man was God? I believed he was in a higher status when he accepted al-Islam and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was above what he was used to being told, that he was nobody and was nothing, and he was ignorant, and he was all these other negative things that was taught during that time and felt and actually put into action.
Right.
I felt that the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave them a different perspective on life, put them in a higher plane, even from the lessons that they learned, that we were taught during that time. It showed that they were able to be educated and they were able to learn and they helped each other. And so it put him in a higher state being and of who he was. Exactly, was he God? And it's probably in his own mind.
I asked that question because you'll get a different answer if you ask males than you ask females.
I know. But he did think he was God, I tell you that much.
Not only did he think it, he wasn't the only one that thought it.
Wow.
And
yeah. They did. And
I'm the moderator here, and I'm not a panelist, so I got to keep moving the program. So
okay,
I'll get in, and I really don't. I got a question here by Abdul Rahman Sharif. Do you feel the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was all-inclusive in his statement, Islam is freedom, justice, and equality for the free thinker to see his higher aim? Khalil? Khalil, you're on mute. You got to start again.
Yes, I said yes. I think he was all-inclusive when he said freedom, justice, and equality for African Americans. And he said that because we were the ones that had suffered. And we were the ones that was looked upon as the descendants from slaves, but we were never actually free. They took the chain from our bodies and put them on our mind. I recall growing up myself in Georgia, not far from Sandersville. I was in Washington County. I recall that, and I was actually prepared to accept the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I'm not saying unknowingly, but that was the kind of mindset that I saw in the South. And when we moved north, I seen the same kind of mindset, but it was more subtle. So the teachings of freedom, justice, and equality really for African Americans, it resonated with me.
It did.
It resonated. It's something that was very attractive. It's something that I felt like other people already had, but we did not have it. So we were attracted to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad with that teaching. I've never heard an African American speak that way, although I was familiar with Marcus Garvey. I was familiar with Noble Drew Ali. I was familiar with some of the great leaders, even with Martin Luther King. I was familiar. But when I heard Dr. Elijah Muhammad speak about freedom, justice, and equality, it resonated with me in my soul. And it didn't take much for me to convince me that the Nation of Islam was something that I wanted to do.
Thank you very, very much. Got a question. This is from Khalil Akbar. This is the Imam's daughter. What are your suggestions moving forward for us as African American people? What do you think would be a solution-oriented action steps to take to building our model community and making the world a better place? What should we do considering all of the information we have been given over the years?
Right.
What would you say is the best course of action? Reverend Lamar, because I'm looking at, let's not just look at us, let's look at all of us as a group. Reverend Lamar.
Yes, sir, Doc. I think, and this I want people to bear with me. The best next step is to first agree with what Derek Bell, the constitutional law professor who taught Barack Obama. Barack Obama disavowed Derek Bell, but in his book, Faces at the Bottom of the Well, what Derek Bell says is that racism in America is permanent. Now stay with me. We are fighting the same battles today that we thought we had won 50 to 60 years ago. The Jeremiah Wright tells the story is this, that the cake of America is baked with the eggs, flour, butter of white supremacy. And once you have baked a pound cake, and I think most of y'all have had pound cake, you can't take the eggs out of a cake that's already baked. You can't take the flour out of a cake that's already baked. The cake is baked. So what we need to do is to see this place for what it is. If this current moment teaches us nothing else, it is that there is very little between what motivated Andrew Jackson politically and what motivates Donald Trump and what motivates Mitch McConnell. So what we have to do, not only Black people, but all freedom-loving people, is really to imagine what it would mean for us to live together in a society where there truly is citizenship for all. That is not the case here. And so the question that Martin King asked is a question we have to ask, is this a burning house? And I think what we're witnessing is the crumbling of the American empire. Historians, depending on who you read, say that there have been 26 empires in the world to rise and fall. The American empire, unless we idolize, and I mean really as idolaters, we idolize America, it will fall as other empires, unless it learns how to treat all people. So forced hysterectomies at the border, Black women being shot in their beds. We cannot sustain this house. So because we know what it is, You can't win a game if you don't know what the rules are. Because we know what the rules are. This is why Elijah Muhammad, Richard Allen, Ida B. Wells, Toni Morrison, Du Bois, see yourself through your own eyes and build, if you're going to stay here, the institutions that will make you strong, that will allow your children. Do not teach your children lies about this place. So my wife teaches college, and when Trayvon Martin was murdered, students came to her broken because we didn't tell them about Emmett Till, because we didn't tell them about reality. So what do? We tell the truth about what this place is, and we go about the work that Richard Allen and Flora and Sarah Allen began, that Elijah and Clara Muhammad began, and that is building institutions that strengthen our humanity, because our existence in this space, we will not be able to take a day off from fighting and laboring if we stay here.
So Hatim, what do we do? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said we should separate. What do we do?
As I had mentioned earlier, as an answer to a question earlier about separation, separation physically is not a necessity. We have our model, okay? And this is where I was saying we make the connections, because these presentations were mostly focused and are mostly focused on the social reform strategy of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I'm hearing now other individuals being mentioned and focused upon as parties to this particular methodology of life, etc. So it is incumbent upon me that I point to, when you ask, what do we do? As members, as an ex-member of the Nation of Islam, as I mentioned earlier, all of us were evolving. All of us were coming, as Allah says in the Quran, tabaq and tabaq. Above each level of thinking, there's always another level of thinking, another level of understanding, another level of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So we have to see the golden thread. Well, this is my language that I'm using based on my studious life under the Imam War 3 Muhammad Rahimahullah. We have to stay on the case. We know what our ancestors gave us. We take what our ancestors gave us, all of that was good, and we bring it all forward. But we don't make a habit of intentionally separating from each other simply because we have a different religious philosophy or theology. At the end of the day, all of us need justice, freedom, justice, and equality at the end of the day. At the end of the day, every man wants to be in his element as a man, and every woman wants to be in her element as a woman. So we have been given a model example in our Prophet Muhammad, prayers and peace be upon him. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad mentioned Prophet Muhammad. Imam W.D. Muhammad pointed us to Prophet Muhammad. Farrakhan points us to the Quran and Prophet Muhammad. So the question becomes for us as Muslims, what we do is we develop the model community that was set up by Prophet Muhammad. So we have to go and study that. And people will say, oh, you want to go and look and see what those Arabs did. It has nothing to do with Arabism. It has to do with revelation from God. And so I'm more than willing to team up with Christians and Jews and others that have, as what I see, the golden thread of unity, the golden thread of love for God, the golden thread of hope, the golden thread of respect for each other as human beings. And so if we can all connect with that golden thread of truth, Haq, as God has given that to us, then we will be able to beat these influences that have always divided us and conquered us. As long as people could get Christians to point their hands at Muslims, and so those old Muslims. As long as the Muslims could point at the Christians, say those old Christians. where those individuals represented a state, an evolution among our people that we have to put to bed. We have to put all of those ideologies and those small-minded ideas to bed and realize that we come together on what we call common denominators. Love is a common denominator. You know, respect is a common denominator. We come together on in those areas where we can come together and we beat Satan. Satan is real. Satan is not a fantasy, a mystery. Satan is real. And those people who claim that they follow God's will, then we must come together and promote the will of God in our own lives. And I would say we should have no problems with Christians that are practicing their religion, and Christians should have no problem with Muslims that are truly practicing their religion and other religious lifestyles as well. So this is a big world, and it's enough room in here for all of us. But we have to solve this problem of this big psychological problem of racism in our community. You know, we have to point the finger at where it is. We have to go and find it. We have to point it out, and we have to shine the light on it wherever it is, and speak truth to power, like the people of old, like the prophets of old, like our leaders that we're talking about tonight. We have to speak truth to power. And as long as we are silent, don't say anything, don't do anything, we're gonna continue to see the domino effect of injustice in America.
Okay, I got threw off for a moment, y'all, but it looked like Hatim kept going. So y'all
I did keep going. That's true.
You probably didn't miss me. Okay, we're about to come in for a landing here now. We got to start coming up with some closing remarks here from each of you, relevant to the subject matter here tonight. First of all, I want to congratulate all of you, and on behalf of the museum as well as Study Al-Islam, we're certainly indebted for you all taking time out of your schedule to be a part of this evening. And it's been rich. And let me say that as the moderator here, these bodies that came before us, the presentations that were made before us, the moderators that were before us, they've done an excellent job. And next week, we've got another one coming. So let's start closing out here with some closing remarks. Imam Khalil, you've got a couple of minutes here to kind of share with us in your own way what this has been for you and still what you see of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings.
For me, this has been very helpful. It has been very enlightening. And it also gave me an opportunity to see how we communicate. Imam Hatim spoke about the model community. You spoke about Medina. In that particular community, it was pluralistic. It wasn't just Muslims living there. There was non-Muslim, there were Christians, there were Zoroastrian living there. So in this day and time, it is important that we try to find the common threads that we have so we can keep moving forward. Now, also, I think what we've done tonight is made some, I won't say suggestion, but some remarks that show the place of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in history, not just in Islamic history, but also in world history and Black history. So we thank God for this opportunity that we've had to be a part of such an enlightenment program, and I appreciate Sister Fisher Muhammad and those who have worked with her, and also all of the presenters. All the presenters, you have been very helpful to me, and we thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Imam Khalil, Charlotte, North Carolina. Sister Adilah, Karriem. You're on mute, Sister Adilah.
Assalamu alaikum. I am so very grateful. I've learned a lot here. Just the opportunity to explore his life and see the insight of what he's given to the world has really gave me an opportunity to kind of go back through the different points of his ability, his teachings, his universal unity, his economic points, who he was as a man and how he was very dedicated and serious about ordained to do by God. Also, his unity and his work with his wife, Sister Clara, who has influenced the educational system. And you can see what's going on today, how that is so important that we maintain that in all our communities, a direction and a reverence for the power of Almighty God. Also, his dedication and just his emphasis on who God was and how his power really, really brought us. Our belief and faith in Almighty God has helped us to survive this tragedy and this 400 years of slavery that we have. I have not found any information on any group of people, civilization, tribe that has been through the atrocities that we have been through, and still you can find evidence of us. So may Allah continue to bless all of us and grow in wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And I thank you all very, very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Imam Hatim?
Yes, again, I guess you could tell I'm pretty fired up right now because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, they will view this media 100 years from now, and they'll hear me and others say Honorable Elijah Muhammad was a bad man. You
That's
know,
right.
when we say bad, we really mean good. You know, he was a warrior for righteousness, right along with his wife. And as I said earlier, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad shook up the gene pool of his people like Muhammad Ali shook up the world with his Ali shuffle. And we have to stay on the case. That's what I'm saying as a advice for all of us. Stay on the case with our Christian brothers and sisters. Stay on the case with our Jewish brothers and sisters. Stay on the case with this golden thread of unity to liberate our people. Alhamdulillah, praise be to God. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad cut to the chase. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was timely. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was necessary. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was impactful. And however, at the same time, be reminded, we are all to be reminded, at the same time, he was very sensitive to the political environment in the United States of America, and he was a wise strategist. One of the things that we have known about our prophet, he said, war is strategy. War is strategy. And strategy is, well, you go and look that definition up, and then we'll come back and we'll talk in the near future again. I had a wonderful time with this panel, and I'm having a wonderful time hearing all of those that presented before us, and I definitely anticipate hearing the last session next week with all of those brothers and sisters that are going to present next week. I'm all bubbly all over. Thank you all.
Yes, it's going to be really, really something. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Reverend Lamar?
Yes, sir. I've been honored beyond my ability to express to join you all tonight. Again, when I think of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I think about theological innovation, economic power, and really the artistic flourishing that his thoughts, his imagination unleashed. Elijah Muhammad was dangerous because he was a free Black man. And free people, free Black men, free Black women, free people in the United States are dangerous because what society really wants us to do is to cooperate with the status quo and the present of injustice. And that was not Elijah Muhammad. And what Elijah Muhammad does, and I want to be clear, this will disturb people, Christians, Muslims alike, but I believe the truth is the truth. God does not have favorites. God loves all human beings.
That's correct.
The way that God has revealed God's self to you is no better or no lesser than the way that God has revealed God's self to you. And so the strand that Imam Hatim talks about that is pulled between all who believe and all who do not, anybody who is breathing because the breath of God is in them. we must remember and respect the humanity of all people.
Amen.
Finally, what I will say is this, that we need more persons with the strength to draw together strands of tradition. So I'm a member of the AME Church. On the first Sundays, we have communion. We sing a song before communion, and some of you are familiar with this. Let us break bread together on our knees. When I fall on my knees with my face to the rising sun. Scholars tell us that is a Islamic survival in Christian practice, because many of the Christians were first Muslims, and they continue to look toward the East. And what I need us to understand is that there's syncretism in all of our faith. None is pure, but we are people of God who have learned, who have borrowed, and as Imam Hatim has said, if we're truly on the path of God, our wisdom continues to expand. May that be so for us and for those who follow. Thank you.
I got to ask you one more question, though, Reverend Lamar, before you leave, and we do
Yes,
have
sir.
a few more minutes. Do you think African-American leadership during the time of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad resented the fact that Black people had come out of the church and become Muslims?
Oh, I think that you would definitely have that. And I think that a smallness amongst religious leaders is very dangerous. Surely there were preachers who were upset that some of their folks went to join mosques, masjids. But what you also had was you had Albert Clegg alongside the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You had a number of Black Christians who had never abandoned what Gayward Wilmore calls the Black radical tradition of the church. And let's Elijah Muhammad attracted the Black masses, not the Black classes. And a big issue with the church, and be careful about this, brothers and sisters in the mosque, embracing middle class values will disrupt your interaction with God. Embracing middle class values, judging people based on educational attainment.
Yeah.
Now, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had a quote unquote third grade education, but his wisdom, his knowledge, his understanding continues to teach beyond the grade. And so, yes, there was petty jealousy. There's petty jealousy amongst Christians, and I'm not a Muslim, but I imagine since y'all are human beings, y'all probably deal with the same thing that all humans do. And so, yes, there was that, but here was the issue. And I go back to Malcolm, whom you all said was a student. We ain't catching hell because we Baptists, and we ain't catching hell because we're Methodists, because we Muslims, or we're Christians. In this space, in this moment, we're catching hell because we're Black, and others are catching hell because they are poor, because they are indigenous. So let's cut out that crap of fighting each other because of some religious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Look to the God who is mother and father of us all, and let's fight for the kind of world that God intends.
Amen.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all of you all for being here tonight and participating in this. And this is was so rich, so rewarding to be a part of this here tonight. Let me close here by thanking Sister Fitra again, Reverend Demet also, and these teams that put this together. This was no small action here. This took a lot of work to put all this together. And I can see what I had in my hand that was written, just putting up. So this was a real blessing for us. This is going to live on. It'll go on after you and I are gone. I would suggest that you, if you did record this tonight, make sure that you share this with people. We need to send this as far as it can go. And then also be conscious of next week. Now, there was a question that I would have loved to have answered, and maybe sometime in the future I'll get a chance to do it. Does the end result outweigh the means? And I won't get a chance to do it, but let me say this in closing out. I said to myself, now, I have to take a picture with Reverend Lamar. And then my mind said, well, why you got to take a picture with Reverend Lamar? Because we need to be seen together. Christians and Muslims and Jews and people of faith. We need to be seen together. We need to become a model of possibility for people today who are looking for guidance. They don't know where to go. We have that guidance and we should share it with them. So at some point, Reverend Lamar, I will see you, I will catch up with you, and I will take a photo with you. And I'll post that.
I'll say this, Doc. It will be my honor. It will accrue positively to me and negatively to you, but I'll be glad to do it.
I don't think so. This is so I want to thank the audience and its participation. We were headed towards 300 here this evening. So this was big. I told you it was going to be nice. I told Fitra, before Fitra told me, this was going to be nice tonight. So let me say this in closing. I want to thank you all for joining Study Al-Islam and the International African American Museum for the 4th session in our 5-session conference, an academic examination of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings. So please complete our post-event survey, which is sent out by mail or email to help us improve future sessions. So we're grateful for your participation and look forward to seeing you in our 5th and final session, which is next week, on did the Honorable Elijah Muhammad prepare his followers to accept the leadership of his son, Imam W.D. Muhammad. So that's next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us on or our respective websites and submit questions via the chat box. Thank you all and have a wonderful evening. It has been a pleasure. It's been marvelous. Hatim, Reverend Lamar, Sister Adilah, Imam Khalil, Imam Joel. I'll see y'all soon. It's been a pleasure. May Almighty God bless you. Look forward to talking to you all again the next time. You all have a healthy and pleasant evening. Good night. Wa alaikum salam.